guest says a second impeachment trial could turn Donald Trump into a martyr. Joining us now from Florida, Senator Marco Rubio. And Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks, Chris.
You have come out strongly against the idea of holding this impeachment trial, but now it is going to happen. What do you think the rule should be about the length of the trial and whether or not to allow witnesses to be called?
Well, first of all, I think the trial is stupid. I think it's counterproductive. We already have a flaming fire in this country, and it's like taking a bunch of gasoline and pouring it on top of the fire. Second, and I look back at the time, for example, Richard Nixon, who had clearly committed crimes and wrongdoing. And in hindsight, I think we would all agree that President Ford's pardon was important for the country to be able to move forward. And history held Richard Nixon quite accountable for what he did as a result. In terms of the rules, I think the president's entitled to due process. I think he's entitled to have a defense. I think he's entitled to present, testimony and evidence if necessary. And, the House doesn't have much of a record of witnesses and so forth because they, frankly, rammed it through very quickly. So I think obviously fairness is important no matter who it is we're talking about. But I just want to repeat, I think this is going to be really bad for the country. It's going to take us, not just is it going to keep us from focusing on really important things, but it's also just going to stir it up even more and make it even harder to get things done moving forward.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell spoke about Donald Trump's responsibility this week. I want to play part of what he said. Take a look.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people. And they tried to use fear and violence to stop a specific proceeding of the first branch of the federal government, which they did not like.
Is Senator McConnell wrong, sir?
I think the president bears responsibility for some of what happened. It was most certainly a foreseeable consequence of everything that was going on. And I think that's widely understood. It may be even better understood with the perspective of time. I think that's separate from the notion of let's revisit this all and stir it up again. It's not, the stories are still going to be written. There's criminal justice investigations. They're going to continue to move forward. All these things are still going to happen. All I'm arguing is we have some really important things to work on. You want to really kind of bring the country together and remember once again how we can get things done. It isn't by uniformity on all the issues. It's about working through a process that allows people with different points of view to debate all that and get to a solution for the country. All that, we're going to jump right back into what we've been going through for the last 5 years and stirring it up again with the trial. And it's just going to be bad for the country. It really is.
So let me ask you the same question I just asked Senator Romney. Would you support ending this trial if you can on procedural grounds that it's unconstitutional to try a president who's left office without ever getting to the issue of the guilt or innocence of Donald Trump?
Yeah, the first chance I get to vote to end this trial, I'll do it because I think it's really bad for America. If you want to hold people accountable, there's other ways to do it, particularly for presidents, including, as I said, the perspective of history and even now as people are learning more about all this. But it's really bad. When you talk about situations like this is not a criminal justice trial. This is a political process. And ultimately, it is a political process that's going to inject things into our public discourse, into our debates. That's going to make it harder to get important things done and is just going to continue to fuel these divisions that have paralyzed the country and have turned us into a country of people that hate each other.
I want to ask you one last question on this, then we'll move on. What about the argument that it would be useful from the point of view of people who think that what the president did was wrong to ban him from seeking public office again, which would be one of the results of holding this trial?
I think that's an arrogant statement for anyone to make. Voters get to decide that. Who are we to tell voters who they can vote for in the future?
Okay. I talked with Senator Romney about Joe Biden's call for unity, and you have spoken sharply already about Biden's first days in office. I'm going to put up a tweet that you sent out on Friday. So far, Biden has talked like a centrist, but governed from the radical left. So, Senator Rubio, is talk of unity from this White House dead already?
Yeah, no, unity and ideology are two separate things, okay? Unity doesn't mean uniformity. That's ridiculous. We are a country that the elections prove it. The 50-50 split in the Senate proves we got people with very different opinions. And we settle that argument through a process in our republic in which we elect people to have debates and try to find a way to move forward. That's separate from portraying yourself as a centrist, but the first thing you do is get thousands of people fired at the stroke of a pen by ending the Keystone Pipeline. Jump on the issue of gender when it comes to sports and who can use what bathrooms and so forth and so on. An immigration order that I think could be read. I've asked for clarification. I hope it doesn't mean this, but I think it could be read to say that someone who's committed a very serious crime, has raped or sexually abused a minor, as long as they were released from prison before the 19th of January, they're not a priority for deportation. Those are not centrist ideas. Now, I understand Joe Biden comes from the left of center. I understand all that, but some of these are far left of center ideas. So my point in that tweet was, he may use the language, the rhetoric, even the demeanor of a centrist, but so far his policies don't seem to represent that. And I think that's an important thing to note as we get into these debates about different issues.
I want to pick up on this issue of immigration. President Biden signed a number of executive actions on immigration in these first few days. He has introduced legislation that would give 11 million people a path to citizenship over the next 8 years. You, of course, back in 2013, were a leader on the issue of immigration reform. You had a plan that would lead to a path to citizenship, as I remember, in 13 years. But you're talking about the Biden plan so far on immigration as coming right up close to amnesty. Is that fair?
Yeah, because that's very different from what we talked about back then. That back then we also talked about $25–30 billion for border security, including fencing and so forth. It had those sorts of provisions in there. It talked about reforming the immigration system so that it was more merit-based, meaning you bring people in on the basis of what they can do for a living and not just primarily whether they have family members living here. That's not what he's talking about. He's basically talking simply and almost entirely about what to do with people that are here in an unlawful status, of which I think the majority of Americans believe we need to do something. But you can only do something after you've got in place immigration reforms that allow you to secure the border and stop illegal immigration. Otherwise, doing something is going to encourage more people to come. We saw a very brief example of that. Just the fact that he was elected incentivized some of these trafficking networks to try to push people to the United States through one of these caravans. That's a reality. So, again, not to mention that back when we did it in 2013, we weren't in the midst of a pandemic, which I think should be the number one focus outside of national security, and I actually think is related to national security.
I want to switch subjects on you now. Is the GOP still the party of Trump for the foreseeable future? And do you see it at some point over the next 3-4 years moving away from President Trump?
The GOP is the party that nominated Donald Trump, and the reason why it did and ultimately got him elected and he got 75 million votes is because you have tens of millions of Americans that feel this economy isn't working for people like them, that feel socially displaced, even like strangers in their own country, and who believe that both of the parties, at least traditionally, and all of politics doesn't understand or care about any of this, that they don't matter to people. Donald Trump did not create those things. He got elected because of those things. He got 75 million votes because of those things. And those factors, those feelings that are out there among tens of millions of Americans didn't leave when he left on Wednesday. They're still there. That's why he got elected. And that's what I hope we'll be a party of. Now, I hope we can do it in a way that keeps the people who believe we're fighting for them and brings back some of the people that perhaps didn't vote for Republicans or didn't vote for the president because they may not like, the way it was said or the way it was done. I think that's quite possible. And I think that's the future of the Republican Party, because frankly, on that, I think depends the future of the country.
Finally, you're up for re-election in 2022, and there has been talk, as I'm sure you know, about the possibility that Ivanka Trump might run against you in a Republican primary in Florida in 2022. How seriously do you take Ivanka Trump as a potential opponent?
Well, I don't really get into the parlor games of Washington other than to tell you that when you decide to run for re-election in a state like Florida, you have to be prepared for it's a competitive race. You run it like a competitive race. So that's what I'm preparing to run. Very competitive race against a tough opponent. I'm sure the Democrats are going to have someone who's going to be very well funded, may even outraise me the way they raised money this last time, because they've found all kinds of innovative ways to raise money. So that's what I'm getting ready for. If you're going to run for Florida Senate, if you're going to run statewide in the state of Florida, you're going to have a tough race. And that might include a primary. That's their right under our system. I don't own the Senate seat. It doesn't belong to me. If I want to be back in the U.S. Senate, I have to earn that every 6 years.
And Ivanka Trump, what's the feeling? The water is fine, jump on in?
I like Ivanka. We've worked very well together on issues, and she's a U.S. Look, anybody can decide to run if they want to. I mean, I'm not entitled to anything and so forth. I've got to earn my way forward. I'm very proud of our record. I would point to the last 4 years working with President Trump in the White House, and I can tell you it's probably been the most productive 4-year period of any U.S. senator from Florida in modern history. The list is long and extensive. I've got more done than anybody, I think, as much as anybody in the U.S. Senate. One of the bills the president brags about the most is the VA accountability bill. That was my bill that I've been working on. And fortunately, when he was elected, we were able to get it done. The child tax credit that we got expanded, the PPP program that saved tens of millions of jobs across the country. So I'm looking forward to being able to tell people of Florida. And in the meantime, I have 2 years left to continue to do my job.
Senator, you sound like you're in campaign form. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Please come back.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can do so by clicking the link right above this video. That way, you'll get immediate updates for all my new videos that I'm going to be posting over the next few weeks.